welcome to this lecture. This is our lecture. And today we are going to discuss the second phase of the unification of Nepal. And this period begins with 1770 and ends in 1792. Just a period of 22 years. From 1770 to 1792. Now, we have already mentioned yesterday that the second phase of the unification of Nepal, in my opinion, is the beginning of the real unification. Because before 1770, or to say up to the conquest of Bhaktapur, Prithvinarayan Saha's main aim was to capture the kingdoms of Nepal Valley, and his main target was Nepal Valley. And the writers have considered the first phase of unification was the expansion of Gorkha. It was not the unification of Nepal, rather it was the expansion of Gorkha. Because Prithvinarayan Saha tried only to expand his kingdom of Gorkha. And that's why his main target was only the three kingdoms of the Kathmandu Valley. But after the conquest of the Kathmandu Valley in 1760, a kind of feeling arose in the minds of Prithvinarayan Saha and also among the commanders of him that some sort of activities should be done through which the newly conquered area could be protected, could be preserved. And in order to preserve the conquered area of the Valley kingdoms and Makwanpur and some small states, the conquest of the other small states situated in the east and also in Gandaki and Karnali was extended. And that's why after the conquest of Bhaktapur in 1769, from 1770, Prithvinarayan Saha tried to expand the area of his kingdom in the east and the west, and that is actually the unification of Nepal. And that's why when we discuss the events after 1770, we do not call the army of Prithvinarayan Saha as Gorkha. Rather, we should call them as Nepaliya. Because up to the conquest of Bhaktapur, we use the word Gorkha, the army of Gorkha. And Prithvinarayan Saha is the king of Gorkha, not the king of Nepal. Though he conquered Kantipur in 1760. But now, after the conquest of the Valley kingdom was completed, and after, after he, yes, and after he continued his expansion in the east and the west, he should call Prithvinarayan Saha as the king of Nepal, and he should call his army. Right? Now, after the conquest of the Valley kingdom and after the shifting of capital to Kantipur, we have already mentioned that after Prithvinarayan Saha conquered Nuwakot, he shifted most of the offices to Nuwakot. And that's why the Nuwakot people still say Nuwakot as the Karma period. So after the conquest of Bhaktapur, he constructed a big darbar at Bhaktapur, which had been damaged by the 2 years before earthquake, and it is in under renovation. So this capital was also shifted to Kantipur. And after after that, he wanted to conquer the small states in the east and the west, which were once the parts of Nepal during the end. Now, this thing I will discuss in the next lecture, when we raise the question whether the activities of Prithu Shah and his successors was the unification of Nepal or expansion of Nepal. But now, it will be sufficient to say that Prithu Shah now tried to expand his territory in the east and the west. Now in the east, after the conquest of Makwanpur, two states were revealed, which were ruled by the Seno kings, and they were Chaudandi and Bhil. Now Prithu Shah sent his commanders Abhiman Singh Basnet and Paras Bhandari, they were the two commanders. Now, regarding the role of the commanders, I shall discuss in the last lecture also. Because if you have read the book by Dilli Raman Ranki's History of Nepal, he has said one thing. Dilli Raman has said one thing. And that is, the unification of Nepal, the credit for the unification of Nepal does not go to Prithu Shah. It is clear. Prithu Shah alone cannot be given full credit of the unification. He was actively supported by his brother and his commander. So his brothers and commander also should be given due credit for the unification. That is the point of Dilli Raman. So in the last lecture, I will discuss something about the role of his commanders. Actually, who were from the three families, mainly three families were there, Thapa, Pandey and Bhaktis. These were the three families. And apart from that, there are some other two. There were some Kumars also, and there were some other Sahas also were there. But the main family who saw Prithu Shah as the commanders during the unification wars were the Thapas, Pandays and the Bhaktis. Anyway, so their role we shall discuss separately in the last lecture. Now, Prithu Shah sent Abhiman Singh Basnet and Paras Bhandari to conquer the remaining two states in the east, that is Chaudandi and Vijaypur, both ruled by the Seno kings. Now this army firstly conquered Chaudandi, then after Chaudandi was conquered, its king, Karna Sen, fled away to Vijaypur, and in Vijaypur, there were powerful ministers. Though Vijaypur was also ruled by the Seno kings, in Vijaypur the ministers were powerful. And the ministers belong to the Rai family. It is clear. The ministers belong to the Rai family. So, when the Nepalese army conquered Chaudandi, its king fled away to Vijaypur. And in Vijaypur, the king of Chaudandi and the powerful minister, Buddhikarna Rai of Vijaypur, they jointly opposed the Nepalese army. But they were also defeated, and Chaudandi and Vijaypur came under the control of But both Karna Sen and Buddhikarna Rai, they fled away to British territory, and they could not be lost. They could not be chased out this time. Later on, they were arrested. I will discuss that. So in this way, Prithu Shah's eastern campaign was quite successful. And that's why by the time Prithu Shah died, the eastern political boundary of Nepal was extended up to this time, even larger than today. Today's boundary is only Beijing, but at that time a little more was there, and it was extended up to this territory. But in the west, Prithvinarayan Saha could not move even an inch across the Gorkha. And that's why, after the conquest of the Valley Kingdom, Prithvinarayan Saha also sent his army to conquer the Chovis. Now there is one substantial difference between Prithvinarayan Saha's move earlier and Prithvinarayan Saha's move after the conquest of Pakistan towards the Chovis. Now, before the conquest of the valley kingdoms of Kathmandu, Prithvinarayan Saha dealing with the Chovis states was quite defensive. It is clear. Prithvinarayan Saha never thought of conquering the Chovis states. He only wanted that the Chovis states should not disturb Prithvinarayan Saha's move to conquer the kingdoms of the Mandal. That's why his position against the Chovis states was quite defensive. He only wanted to defend Gorkha and to conquer the states from the hands of the Chovis. But now, the policy of Prithvinarayan Saha towards the Chovis states was offensive. Now, Prithvinarayan Saha wanted to conquer the Chovis. It is clear. Now, on the contrary, the position of Chovis states was now the defensive, because the Chovis state had realized that Prithvinarayan Saha had conquered a large portion of territory in the central Nepal, in Parvati area, and also had conquered the Sena kingdoms of the east. So and Prithvinarayan Saha also had expanded his army, which was first established at the time of the conquest of Makwanpur. So, now the Chovis states were quite defensive in their dealing with Prithvinarayan Saha. And Prithvinarayan Saha's line was quite offensive. And that's why the Chovis states, the major Chovis states, or the main Chovis states, formed an alliance against Prithvinarayan Saha. And there were 5 main Chovis states which formed an alliance against Prithvinarayan Saha. And they were Tanahu, Kaski, Lomjung, Parvat, and Palpa. These were the 5 major states. Regarding the other states, they were very small states. They were the minor principalities, and the major powerful states among the Chovis were these 5: Palpa, Parvat, Tanahu, Kaski, and Lomjung. Now, after 1770, Prithvinarayan Saha, yes. Now, after 1770, Prithvinarayan Saha sent his army to the Chovis states, and when the Chovis states realized that they would not be able to resist the Nepalese army single-handed, gave up that. Because now the Nepalese army had become more powerful with the conquest of the Sena kingdoms and the kingdoms of the valley. And that's why neither Kaski nor Lomjung nor Parvat nor Tanahu was in a position to fight with the Nepalese army single-handed. And that's why they have to make an alliance in the island of Parliament. And there were moves and counter moves from both sides. You know, now I don't want to discuss all these moves and counter moves, but it is sufficient to say that sometimes Prithvinarayan Saha assured Kaski against Lomjung and Godjar Kapur. And in the same situation later on, Prithvinarayan Saha also joined hands with Lomjung against Kaski. So this is the what to say, war strategy, moves and counter moves, which we will discuss in a little detail when we discuss Prithvinarayan Saha as the strategy. So there were moves and counter moves, there were alliances and counter alliances, but even then, Prithvinarayan Saha was unsuccessful to break the unity of the Chobisi. Because you know, the Chobisi, the status of Chobisi states or the position of Chobisi states was in danger after Prithvinarayan Saha emerged as a powerful ruler. And that's why they came under one umbrella, they came under one big alliance, and they jointly opposed the Nepalese. And finally, during the time of Prithvinarayan Saha, there was a war between the Nepali army and the joint force of the Chobisi states in a place which is called Sotong. Sotong was also one of the small independent principality among the Chobisi. Not big, but it's small. And in that Sotong war, the Nepalese army was defeated. Here lies the, what to say, big failure of Prithvinarayan Saha. In a war between the joint force of Chobisi states and Nepalese army at Sotong, the Nepalese army was defeated. The commander of the Nepalese army, Kahar Singh Basniak, was killed, and another army commander, Bamsaraj Pandey, he was taken as war. So with the loss of these two able commanders of Nepalese forces, Kahar Singh Basniak and Bamsaraj Pandey, the Nepalese army was defeated by the joint force of Chobisi, and that's why Prithvinarayan Saha could not conquer any state among the Chobisi during his life. So what I mean to say is that after the conquest of the Gari kingdoms in 1769, Prithvinarayan Saha succeeded in conquering the eastern states, but he failed to conquer the western states. And the main cause of the failure of Prithvinarayan Saha in conquering the western state was that he could not break the unity among the Chobisi. Then one more thing we should say about Prithvinarayan Saha, and that is, we have already discussed the Kinloch mission of 1767. After the conquest of Kirtipur, King Jayaprakash Malla of Kantipur requested for the petition for the help of East India Company, we have already mentioned, and Captain Kinloch was defeated, that also we have already mentioned. But though Captain Kinloch was defeated by the Bhattacharya at that time in 1767, Captain Kinloch had controlled some of the areas between Parsa and Moghal. Some of the areas were controlled by this British army, this East India Company army, and they were under Kinloch for some years. And now Prithvinarayan Saha wanted to get them back. And in order to get them back, he was not in a position to fight with the company's army. And there was negotiation between East India Company and Prithvinarayan Saha. And the East India Company demanded 15,000 rupees as compensation for that area, and that was paid by Prithvinarayan Saha. and the areas which were controlled by Killa, between Persia and Mohotari became part of it. Is it clear? So these were the three achievements of Prithu after the conquest of the Valley Kingdom. First, two achievements and one failure. One is the conquest of the Eastern Kingdom, Saudarya and Vijayapur. Then second, the restoration of the area between Persia and Mohotari, which were held by Captain Killa. And third was his failure in conquering the Soviets. So this was the position during the time of Prithvinarayan Saha. Now after Prithvinarayan Saha, in 1775, he died. Prithvinarayan Saha died in 1775, and he was succeeded by his son Pratap Singh. Now Pratap Singh ruled only for less than 3 years, only 2 years and 10 months, from 1775 to 1777. Yes, between Persia and Mohotari, in the Tara area. So, he could rule only for 2 years and 10 months. That's why his contribution in the unification of Nepal was not so much. And more than that, when he was the king, he had some kind of clash with his brother, Babu Shah. Now, I don't want to discuss the conspiratorial politics inside the Nepalese world between the king and his brother. But the clash between Pratap Singh and Bahadur Shah, because of the clash between these two brothers, the unification war lagged behind. There was no considerable development in the unification of Nepal after the death of the and Pratap Singh Saha ruled for less than 3 years. But even there are some the contribution of Pratap Singh, though little, should not be completely ignored. And the first contribution of this Pratap Singh Saha during his short tenure of period was a treaty with Tibet. This is one thing. Now, I have to give a brief background of this treaty. Now, we have, I think in the very first lecture I have mentioned that during the time of Pratap Malla, there was a treaty between Kantipur and Tibet, isn't it? I have mentioned. And according to which Nepal used to mint coins for Tibet, and Tibet would circulate those Nepalese coins in the Lhasa market. That I have discussed. We have discussed. Alright. Then what happened, the Nepalese king said later on, the Nepalese king sent debased coins, mixed coins, not pure silver coins. In the beginning, the Nepalese government sent pure silver coin, and the Tibetan government would pay those coins with silver or gold, and a kind of commission, some percentage of commission was to be received by the Kandipur king, and that was the economic benefit for the Katong kings. But later on, the Nepalese kings sent a kind of mixed coins. And those mixed coins, what happened, after its circulation for 4 or 5 years, these coins turned to be black. If that was the pure silver coin, it would remain white all through the year. But since it was not a pure silver coin, and it was mixed with some inferior type of material in that coin, they turned to be black, and they were called as Karamuka. The Tibetans would call them as Karamuka. And the Tibetans, when Krishna conquered the Valley kingdoms, had already conquered, the Tibetan government demanded that Prithvinarayan Saha should take back all those mixed coins and supply the new coins in the same ratio. For example, if there are suppose 5,000 black Mohors, then Krishna has to take back all those 5,000 black Mohors and supply new silver coin amounting to 5,000 numbers. But that was a great loss for Krishna. And Krishna replied that, well, now the future coins will be pure silver. And regarding the question of taking back those debased coins would be taken back at the ratio of silver in those coins. Is it clear or not? That means, suppose the one mohor has the weight of 1 tola, for example. And in that 1 tola, half tola may be pure silver and half tola may be other materials. And Krishna wanted that if the Tibetan government supplied 2 such debased coins, he will supply 1 pure silver. And that was a great loss to the Tibetan government. So there lies the question of discord, question of conflict between Krishna and the Tibetan. And that problem was solved. And when Pratap Singh became the king, he did not solve the coinage problem. He could not solve the coinage problem. Later on, it was because of that coinage problem, there were 2 wars between Nepal and Tibet, which we shall discuss later on. It is a very brief one, we shall discuss. And when Pratap Singh became the king, he did not try to solve the whole problem, because he knew that it was not possible to solve those problems so easily. Because if the Tibetan version is accepted, Nepal will sustain a great loss. If the Nepalese version is accepted, then the Tibetan government will sustain the great loss. I think you understood it. So, Pratap Singh did not venture to solve this long-standing conflict. Rather, he signed a new treaty with the Tibetan government, and in which the Nepalese government promised to supply pure silver coin, and the Tibetan government also promised not to open its border to the foreign merchants, and the sole business link of Tibet would be with Nepal. Anyway, the problem was solved for future, but the problem of the debased coins, problem of the mixed coins was still there, but even then, Pratap Singh at least solved the problem between Nepal and Tibet for future business transactions. This is the important contribution of Pratap Singh. Then the second one was that after the conquest of Saudandi and Vijay, we have already mentioned earlier that Karan Singh and Buddhidharma Rai fled away to British territory. Now it was during the time of Pratap Singh Saha that the Nepalese army secretly entered into the British territory and brought back Buddhidharma Rai. Because Karan Singh had already died. And that powerful minister who was planning to interfere in the Vijaypur and Saudandi affairs from the British territory, he was arrested and brought back to Vijaypur, and he was captured. He was killed. And apart from that, earlier, a small portion of Nepalese land, which we now call Iran. Do any one of you belong to Iran? Now that part of Nepal, eastern Nepal, Iran, that was ceded to Sikkim by Vijaypur. That means Sikkim had conquered that part, Iran, from Vijaypur. But now, when Buddhidharma Rai was arrested and given capital punishment, Nepal demanded the restoration of Iran from Sikkim, and the Sikkim government had no option rather to surrender that part that is Ilam. So Ilam came under the control of Nepal. So this is the second contribution of Pratap Singh Saha. And the third contribution of Pratap Singh Saha was that in the Chittagong area there were two important forts which were known as this Kabilaspur and Sumeshwar Gully. Kabilaspur Gully and Sumeshwar Gully. And these two forts were under the control of Tanong. And these two forts were significant for Nepal because it connects Nepali territory with the British territory. British territory means Indian territory. So these two gullies were also conquered by Nepal during the time of Pratap Singh Saha. So this is the third contribution of Pratap Singh Saha. And that's it. So now we only have to say that though the reign of Pratap Singh Saha was very short, it was less than 3 years, but still then some minor contributions were made by him. Isn't it? Because the commercial issue with Tibet was solved, at least for future. Then the person who was planning or who was intriguing against Nepali forces at Chaudhary and Vijaypur, he was taken back and given capital punishment. And third was, Nepal also captured the two forts which were under Tanong. These two forts were conquered, and with the conquest of these two forts, there was a direct connection between Nepalese territory and the. That was a very big thing, you know. Otherwise, if that territory, if those territories were not conquered, the southern border of Nepal would not touch the Indian territory. And that's why it was a big achievement. So these were the minor but important achievements of Pratap Singh. Now after Pratap Singh, another major role in the unification of Nepal was played by Rajendra. And now, just to give a very brief background of the political scenario of Nepal at that time, just to give a very brief background. After the death of Pratap Singh Saha, his 2-year-old son, or 2.5-year-old son, Rana Bahadur Saha came. Now he was a minor king. And when the minor king of 2.5-year-old was kept on the throne, his mother Rajendra Lakshmi was the wife of Pratap Singh Saha. She was the queen of Pratap Singh Saha. So Rajendra Lakshmi worked as the guardian of the minor aged son, and the guardian is generally known as regent. He is called the regent, Nayak. In Nepal it is called Nayak. So when the king was minor, generally the country is ruled by a regent, by his guardian, and Rajendra Lakshmi became his guardian. And at that time, Prince Narayan Saha's another son, second son, Bahadur Saha, was also there. And it is generally said that, you know, Bahadur Saha had all the qualities of Prince Narayan Saha, whereas Pratap Singh Saha does not have that quality of his father. It is generally said. So Bahadur Saha and Rajendra Lakshmi, they cooperated each other for some months. But after that, there were discords, there were conflicts between the two. And the main cause of conflict was that Rajendra Lakshmi was afraid that her son was minor, only 2.5 years or 3 years. They were expecting that very opportunity, Bahadur Saha might have absorbed the throne of Nepal, setting aside the claim of the minor from Bahadur. So that was the fear of Rajendra Lakshmi. Anyway, these two, the clash between Rajendra Lakshmi and Bahadur Shah led to the self-exile of Bahadur Shah to Bettiah. That is invented. And after the self-exile of Bahadur Shah to Bettiah, then again the unification war was resumed by Rajendra Lakshmi. Now Rajendra Lakshmi's contribution in the unification of Nepal was that she was the lady, or to say she was the regent who conquered three big Chaubisi states, Castile to Nanpan, these three. Krishna Sakunda conquered these three Chaubisi states. Rather it was Rajendra Lakshmi, under whose regency these three big Chaubisi states were. And that was a very big achievement, you know. The conquest of three big Chaubisi states, Castile to Nanpan, it was a very great achievement on the part of Rajendra. Because after the conquest of these three